Hi, Corey Eubanks. Welcome to Stunt Stories. You know, high falls were never my thing. I mean, I was a gymnast years and years ago, did tumbling and whatnot. Wasn't very good, but I could do, back handspring, then a flip and, round off, back handspring into a flip and that sort of stuff, and some dive rolls, and competed a little bit in gymnastics when I was like, 10, 11, 12 years old. But my experience with doing high falls really didn't exceed more than 20, 30 feet. But that wasn't going to stop me from accepting a job to do a 6-story high fall. And yes, I was frickin' nervous. I remember getting the call, and Max Clevins was directing this movie called Painted Dolls. I think it was a movie of the week. And anyway, in this film, I'm going to do this 6-story high fall. But leading up to it, I'm inside a room and I'm fighting this guy, and he's going to be strangling me and kills me and takes me and throws me out a window. And I'm going to use an air ramp to go off this air ramp to go flying out this window. And I go up there. This is in an apartment building downtown Los Angeles. And I go into this room, and we're looking at where the air ramp's going to be, and I'm looking at the window. Now, that's not going to be one continuous shot. I'm not going across the room, off the air ramp, out the window, and going 6 stories down. Although when they edit it together, that's how it's going to appear. What I was actually doing was going out the 1st story window and falling down onto some porta pits. So I'm falling maybe 6 feet at the most out the window, 6 feet to the porta pits. So it's not really a big deal, but it was 16 feet from my air ram to make it out the window. And I'm like, that's a pretty big leap for me. I mean, there's a lot of guys who can do that all day long. That just wasn't one of my strong points, going off of air rams. I was rehearsing the day before and trying to get it down, and it was questionable whether I was going to be able to make it. But again, I was young, I was hungry, aggressive. I was not going to turn down the stunt because I believed in myself. I believed in my own athleticism that I would be able to figure it out. Now, I show up on the set, we walk into the room, and I look at the window, and there's a bed at the base of the window. And I'm like, yes, if I come up short, I'm going to land up on the bed. This is a great scenario. And I look out the window, they got the porta pits there, and this is a cush job now. Not a big deal. I'm now relieved. So we get ready to go, and I'm rehearsing the thing with the guy who's strangling me. It's like one step, he's going to grab me, and one step from the wall, and I step on the air ram, and out the window I'm going to go. So now Max Clevins is getting ready. Okay, let's get ready to shoot this. And the first AD starts clearing everybody off the set. You need to leave, and you need to leave, and shut that door. And I'm like, wow. They're like making a big deal about this because it's like a big dangerous stunt. Well, that wasn't the case at all. All of a sudden, this wardrobe lady walks in, this beautiful girl wearing a robe, and she had paint all over her face. Hence the name of the film, Painted Dolls. And she came in and she dropped the robe, and she's completely nude. Nude, naked, bare ass, whatever you want to call it. Here's this girl, beautiful girl, and she goes and she lays down on the bed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, nobody told me about this. I had no idea. So now I'm on my mark, and I'm trying to look out the window where I'm supposed to go, and there's this naked girl laying there, and Max Clevins, oh, roll cameras, okay. And they're calling out camera speed, yeah, we got speed. Ready, Corey? Yeah, ready. And action. And I go and I step on the air ram and I go flying across the room, and I land right on top of her. Right on top of her. I'm laying on her naked chest. Like, where do I put my hands trying to get off? And her face is right here. And I'm like, hi, you okay? And she's like, yeah. What's your name? I'm like, and I just go to roll off of her to try to not push. I kind of wanted to, but I didn't. I just kind of rolled off, and Max Clevin, cut, cut, cut. And he looks at me and he says, well, kid, you know what they say. You go where your eyes go. Now look out the window. And I got so embarrassed. I was like, oh my gosh, why did he have to say that, you know? So anyway, we ended up doing it again. And on I think it was the third take, the second take, I messed up on the air ram and I missed the wall. I mean, I missed the window and hit the wall. And then on the third take, and she was a nervous wreck because I had proved that I wasn't very accurate. I landed on her, I hit the wall. Finally, the third take, I made it out the window. So then we had to wait for nightfall. And this 6-story high fall I was doing, I got there earlier in the day and I started at the second story and I went to the third story and I went to the fourth story and I went to the fifth story and I was getting all these rehearsals into this big, huge airbag and it was perfect. But now it's night and they have these 12Ks out there, which are these big bright lights shooting up against the building, right up at the window where I'm going to come out. And the effects guys went up there and they put this candy glass in there. They had panes of glass that are candy glass made out of sugar. So it's kind of like looking through wax paper. It's not very clear, this glass. And then they had some curtains. So now I've got to bust through the glass and the curtains to then fall down 6 stories to land in the center of the airbag. Now, to get up to this windowsill, we took a desk from one of the other rooms and brought it in and shoved it up against the window. And I'm like, this isn't very professional. This is what we thought of. What if that desk wasn't there? I don't know what we would have done. And it just was the perfect height for me to just start here and just take a couple of steps, bust through the glass. But as I'm starting to fall, the 12Ks are just blinding me. And you don't see the airbag at all until you fall like 3 stories until you get out of the bright lights to spot the airbag. Now, the real challenging thing about all of this was not just going through the breakaway glass and not being able to see the airbag, but the direction that Max Clevins gave me just before doing the high fall. He said, hey kid, your character is now dead, so you can't be swimming in the air. You can't be making any movement with your arms. And I'm like, oh my God. For those of you who have done high falls, you know that you're using your feet, you're using your arms. If you're going to do a header, that's what you're using to rotate yourself over, to flop onto your back. So then I thought, well, wow, maybe I should do a face-off. And like I felt more comfortable because all the rehearsals I had done all day long were headers. And anyway, it was a nerve-wracking thing for me. And I did it. And the shot worked, and we watched playback, and I did move a little bit, and he was a little disappointed in that. And I said, well, it wasn't really, the dead guy wasn't moving. It was just kind of like maybe the fall, just the limp body was moving, and that's what we were trying to pass off is the reason that my arms were moving. But it made the movie. It worked. It was in there. They cut it in, and it all worked. It was fine. But I realized after that night that high falls just weren't my thing. A lot of people have lost their lives doing high falls. It's not a stunt that is really repeated nowadays into airbags. It's not something that's practiced. Everyone now is on a wire, or they're just simulating like they're falling against a green screen. And that's all good. That's cool because, like I said, a lot of people have lost their lives doing high falls and have been injured doing high falls. So if they never do another high fall into another airbag, that's fine. That's good. You know, save the lives of the stunt performers. That's what I say. Hey, I got to sit down with a living legend at Fast House, a man named Andy Armstrong, who has worked on the biggest feature films ever produced. This man has an incredible resume. Wait till you hear what Andy had to say about his lengthy career.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the invite.
I know you have a very busy schedule. This man works all over the world. It's incredible to know that, I mean, aside just from the United States or England, where you're from.
England, I was born in England and worked there originally, yeah.
And looking back over your resume and realizing, my gosh, you've worked in France, Denmark, Italy, Iceland, Egypt, Brazil, Argentina, Denmark, Norway, Scotland, Australia, Austria, China.
Yeah, there's a lot of places. I mean, sadly, some of those places you can't go back to now. You know, there's a lot of Arab countries and things that I shot in that wouldn't be good to go and be there now.
Let me ask you something, because your career has such a long history and has been so on an upward climb continually. What was that one movie that you remember watching as a young boy or as a young man that you went, that's what I want to do?
Definitely Thunder Road.
Thunder Road.
Yeah, without question. 1957, when I saw it, I was, just a young kid, and when I first saw it, it was probably a few years later when I saw it on TV, I think. But that had it fascinated me because it was the first thing I'd seen where cars were sort of being thrown around, looking as if they're out of control, but being in control, and that certainly a light bulb went off. Yeah.
Because you come from a racing motorcycles, racing cars. That was your background.
Yeah, I started off as a kid presuming that I'd be a car racer, and it was only when I got to sort of early teen years that the one bit of the sort of equation that I hadn't really worked out is that all the successful racers in Europe came from very rich backgrounds. So it wasn't going to work out for me at that age. So I sort of migrated to motorcycles, and I had a bit of a career doing trials and then enduros on bikes, but not a particularly successful career. And I was just at the point where I was thinking, I need to get a real job, because this is not going to work out. When my brother called me to go to France from England to do a laydown on a police motorcycle, a BMW in Nice in the south of France. And so that was
what movie was that for?
It was a TV show called The Zoo Gang.
The Zoo Gang.
Doubling John Mills. And that was a huge light bulb moment for me, because I suddenly realized in an instant that I could make a lot more money crashing a motorcycle than I ever could failing to win a race on one. So that was a massive sort of watershed moment for me.
You know what's awesome is someone like yourself, and there's very few that actually have the background of doing the stunts, then having been in that position, and then now you're directing other up-and-coming stunt performers, stunt men, stunt women, and you having been there, mentally what they're going through.
Yes, yeah.
And you make it so much simpler for the stunt performer because you understand.
I'd like to think it makes it better for them. I'd be the first to say that I was a much better coordinator than I ever was a performer, really. I did some very big, gnarly, in brackets, stupid stunts when I was young.
Did your brother put you up to those?
No, some of them were ones that I wanted to do, so I got no one else to blame, really. And some of them were pretty cool, and some were okay, but ridiculous for the amount of risk and danger in them, But I was, from a very young age, I was obsessed with some of the stunts of Buster Keaton. So when I started directing second units, I always used to try and put some little homage to Buster Keaton in stuff, because I was always just fascinated by the kind of things he did. So I did it over the years. I've done a lot of that sort of stuff, and I still did it right up to the end, right up till there's a lot of Buster Keaton-ish actions even in Spider-Man, that I put in there.
How old were you when you worked on The Man with the Golden
Man with the Golden Gun, the Bond movie?
Yes, I'm sorry.
I did one unit on it. I was actually an assistant director in those days. God knows, I must have been in my 20s, I guess. I don't know.
And you did The Spy Who Loved Me.
Yeah, I did a unit. I did an action unit in Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay in the jungle, which is where where the speedboat goes over the waterfalls. I did that sequence.
You shot that whole sequence?
Shot that sequence, yeah.
Wow. How about The Last Place on Earth?
That was in the Canadian Arctic and the Norwegian Arctic, and that was, we were up, I've got one of those certificates for going past the, whatever parallel it is into the Arctic Circle. That was a pretty impressive thing to do, because we had, we actually shot 10 miles out on frozen sea ice, which we used to go to. In fact, one weekend I bulldozed a road that went about 10 miles dead straight on top of frozen sea ice, and took a Chevy van that I had and had it absolutely flat out on it. The speedometer went off at about 120, but it was like a shuttle thing. It was just bouncing off the walls of it was on sheer ice and bouncing off the walls of the snow. That's what the sort of thing we used to do for recreation.
Were you driving?
I was driving, yeah.
You like to drive fast.
It was fantastic. They just completely level frozen sea ice in a Chevy van. It was where you could just go flat out.
Do you remember the movie that you and I did? I was working for you
in Omaha,
called Indian Runner with Sean Penn.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Because speaking of ice, we were driving on the snow, and who was it? Myself and. There was someone else in the lead car that we were trying to slide the car.
I think one of us, one was leading, one was chasing. I was chasing you. Or
That's right, it was you and me.
It was you. It was me chasing you.
Right.
Yeah.
And Sean Penn said, "You guys aren't going fast enough." And you were trying to explain to him, "We're on ice. We can't make the turn that sharp." He's like, "Let me show you guys."
He put the car straight in the ditch.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
He took it around the corner. Poof, big explosion.
It lasted literally 30 seconds in the car. It's fantastic. But we did do it in the end, I remember, and it was. He thought it was fantastic car control. From my point of view, it was a complete accident, because it was just on full opposite lock, completely sideways, and sort of one wheel in the air, and somehow it recovered. But it was good fun. But
you've had this career that other than working all over the world, you have produced, you have directed, you're a writer, you're an actor, you're a stunt coordinator, you're a stunt man. You've done so many capacities. Do you have one that you favor the most? Like, you know what? Hey, Andy, you're multi-talented, but guess what?
I failed at all of them, really.
But you got to pick one.
It's good to fail upwards, though. It's always good to do that.
I wouldn't know about that. but what would be the one if you said, okay, I have to only do this one capacity? What would you want to
direct. Most of all, I'd like to direct. I mean, I wrote, produced and directed a movie in '94 for Paramount and Showtime called
Moonshine
Highway, yeah, which you came in and read for. I wanted you to play a role in it, and
I remember that. Was it McLaughlin?
Kyle MacLachlan, yeah, and Randy Quaid, and the movie's really a sort of homage to Thunder Road. Really, it's that kind of movie. It was my take on Thunder Road. It was even set in the same year. It was set in 1957, and it was about illegal liquor running. But the problem I had with it is, because of my background, Showtime and Paramount kept trying to push the movie as an action movie, and it really wasn't an action movie. It's a thriller with a couple of cool car chases, but it's not really an action movie. And they kept trying to promote the movie because of me as an action film. And I'd really like to direct stuff that's not action.
Yeah,
I'm actually bored with action.
Yeah, really. Tell a good story.
Yeah, I just think that's much more interesting. I don't watch many action films, except to see someone's work. I don't, I find most of them fairly boring. I watch mostly documentaries. But
what did you do on Rambo 3?
I directed the second unit.
That was a huge movie.
Yeah, it was a horrible movie. Really.
How did you and Sly get along?
I get on well with Sly.
It's a classic. That was Rambo 3.
It was when Sly and all his people had sort of reached the pinnacle of these wacky people. There's armies of people that would come onto the set, and
his entourage.
3 carloads of them.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of egos going on, because he had his people doing security, and we also had Israeli special forces and Mossad doing security in Israel, and they obviously thought his lot were a joke. So there was sort of friction there, and there was lots of stuff going on.
Have you noticed how most of Sly's And I know. I've doubled him on 3 movies, and I used to box with Frank. I know Sly and Frankie pretty well, and I found it coincidental or odd that all of his bodyguards were just a little bit shorter than him.
Yeah.
I would want a big guy. I would want like Esteban. I'd want someone big next to me, protect you, not a little guy.
The Israeli guys used to make, I mean, they just thought it was a joke, you know, because that's what they deal with all day long, you know. And they made a big fuss of the fact that he used to have his entourage drive to the set and park the cars on the set, and then they'd leave the cars all day. And, you know, I remember the head of the Israeli Special Force detail that was with us came over to me one day and sort of nudged me, and he said, if the car's been parked there all day long, and now Sly and all his entourage have got in the car and they're going to drive home, and as they're driving over the horizon, he came and said to me, he said, if I was going to take him out, it would be now. Which brings it all into, you know, makes it all relative.
Wow. Hey, how was it working on, and may I ask, what did you do on Planet of the Apes?
Directed the second unit.
That was a huge sequence.
Yeah, I actually directed more screen time than the first unit, really.
And didn't you come up with the concept for most of the action in that?
Most of I wanted to make the apes super powerful, you know, so that we wanted to do wire-assisted gags or air rams or anything, so that wherever they moved, they would accelerate the way that a wild animal does, because I always think that's the problem with people playing an animal, is that an animal, when it doesn't decide to bite you, it's an instant reaction, and there's no thought process, it just gets you. That's why you'll never outrun a savage dog or a tiger or anything. Anyone that thinks they do, you know, is not going to be around long. And I wanted to do that with the apes. I didn't want them to look like humans in a suit that sort of moved like a human. So, but it was actually Charlie Crawwell that came up with one of the best inventions for that.
He's a great guy.
Which is, you know, we put like a long conveyor belt and had the apes on it on all fours, and then we towed that conveyor belt so that we could, without any visual effects, we could have apes on all fours overtaking galloping horses.
Wow!
And it's a great. It's a very innovative thing, and Charlie sort of found that out, testing stuff.
I think I worked one day on that movie at LA Center Studios.
Right.
And wasn't Mark Wahlberg in that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And we had to bring some police cars up, and he's up the
steps.
steps.
Right, yes, yeah. But, at the end of the movie, yeah.
Yes, at the very end. But David Rowden and Clint Lilly were dressed head to toe as apes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's impossible to tell who's in the ape suit.
Yeah.
But Charlie had told me, Corey, that's David, that's Clint. So they come up towering over me, staring at me, and I go, hey Dave, hey Clint. You guys look the same,
yeah.
You know? What are you working on now?
I really have tried to retire from the stunt business, really. I mean, I did the last, well, not, there's been one since. I did the 2 Spider-Man movies before that. And then I did a big Bollywood movie, I think called Bang Bang, which we're all over the world doing. And then I decided that I want to do something else. So
what do you want to do?
I'm developing a TV series to shoot in Brazil.
Okay, so you're still in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, sort of. And I've written 2 books, and so I've been going on book tours with those and doing talking at after dinner talks and things.
Tell us about your book. How would someone find your book?
You can look up me on Amazon. There's 2 books. One is a book about the stunt process, because I wanted to put it all in a book before I forgot a lot of it. You know, a lot of the process that the way I've applied myself to do certain things. You know, so it deals with up and coming coordinators, really, how I feel that they should approach the job, because I see a lot of young coordinators that sort of set themselves up to fail before they even do anything, because they just haven't thought about the process completely.
It's funny, there's a saying, it's not that they didn't know, they didn't know they didn't know.
No, exactly that. And it's very prevalent in our business, I think. I think things don't get passed down. They do within a family, you know, there's a lot of families like ours and, you know, that pass information down, but a lot of information doesn't get shared in the way it should and the way it does in other businesses.
What do you think has been the biggest change? Because you have seen this business go from, we didn't even know what a green screen was.
No, exactly.
When someone said, well, hey, we're going to do a plate shot, I actually thought it was going to be of a plate.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know it was what a plate shot was.
I mean, it's been a massive change in a very short time, really, in you know, only the last 10 years or so, really. And I think a lot of it is in principle, is much better because you can make big, potentially dangerous stunts much safer. The problem is with it, I think a lot of it is misused, and it tries to replace real action. And there's a place for both of them. You know, I don't think people should do massive high falls anymore. They're just ridiculous. I don't think people should get hit by a car because the odds are ridiculous. They always, in my opinion, most car hits look crap because they're done at under 20 miles an hour. I'd much rather hit a fully weighted human weight dummy at 60 miles an hour, and it looks much better. But I don't think there's any need to do anything that's that dangerous, because there's always some visual effect helping way around it. But it has to be tempered with still doing something that's based on reality, because the problem is if you leave all the action to a CG world, you'll end up with an 18-year-old kid doing it on a computer that's never seen a car crash, or he's never seen someone fall off a horse, or he's never seen someone tumble downstairs. So you have to have, I always bring visual effects people to the set and let them see things, because, you know, even for storyboards, just so they can see how things move, you know, it doesn't happen like it does on your computer.
I have 9-year-old twin girls, and they will point out randomly to me on movies, Daddy, that was fake.
Yeah, when it's fake, yeah.
Like, you're 9, how do you know? So, I mean...
Invariably, it's the things that we can instinctively identify. That's the thing, is gravity. We all know in our psyche, if someone fell through the skylight, you know roughly how long it's going to take them to get to the ground, which is a very short time. The moment you see someone tumbling, it just takes you out of it because it's not real.
So what are your feelings about the virtual reality?
Again, I think it's got some great potential, but I think it's horrendously overused. I think all the visual effects get overused and wrongly used in movies. You still need some weight to some things. When we did the first of the Amazing Spider-Mans, one of the briefs was, when I met with Sony, is that they wanted to go back to non-CG. They wanted a real Spider-Man to do stuff, but they felt that the stuff they had before didn't look real. And I sort of agreed to everything when we'd done the deal and said, yeah, you know, we're going to do this and do that. But as I walked out of the office, I had no idea how we're going to do it. And
but that's half the fun, don't you
it's
think?
half the fun, yeah. But after a few weeks, it was getting a little bit nervous about it. But what I did is I brought Jay Caputo in and put up 3 parallel, you know, 3 bars, and had him do giant swings between them as a gymnast, and videoed it. And as soon as you saw that, it was obvious what the problem was with the old Spider-Man. When you look at it, you go, oh, how would anyone not spot that? But it's because the speed down is the same as the speed up, and the speed down is the same as the speed up. When you saw someone do it for real, the speed down is violent, and he comes to the bottom and gets really heavy, and then he'll go up slower till he gets negative and then grabs another bar. And it's that variation in speed. And once we'd found that, then we built all the mechanisms to handle real gravity.
Back to the gravity.
Back to gravity again. And if you did it CG, oddly enough, they've gone full circle now, and they've gone back to full CG Spider-Man. And a lot of it is just, it's that extension of time which you just don't buy into. Someone jumps and they can have a whole conversation on the way down. It's just ridiculous, you know. And it's, you know, people that create that have never seen a real wreck or have never seen someone really fall. You know, it's very, very fast.
So tell me one more time, how could someone get this book? That you have 2 books.
The stunt profession book is Action Movie Maker's Handbook, and it's under my name at Amazon. And then the second book is actually about raising children. Oddly enough, I wanted to be able to do some after dinner talks about something connected to my profession, but not about stunts.
That's awesome.
And I also felt that we live in a generation where kids are being brought up terrified of everything. And I have grandchildren now, so I take them places. And I realize that I'm going through the same stuff as I did with my kids when they were small, is that you get parents that if the kid falls over and cuts his knee, they're panicking and screaming. And, you know, if they fall over and break something, or if they fall off a motorcycle, they put it away, you know.
Yeah.
We had a very strict rule with my kids growing up that anything they crashed, they had to get back on and ride unless they had bones sticking out of the skin or something. Even if it was only for 10 feet, doesn't matter whether it's a horse or a motorcycle or a car or buggy or whatever, because then you can get off and then you can say, last time you rode, I didn't crash.
Right.
And that was a very strict rule with me. And so I wrote a book about that theory, and I'm just releasing it now.
That's awesome.
I'll probably get sued, but...
Hey, I know you travel a lot. I know you're all over the world. Next time you're back in this area, will you come do another Stunt Stories?
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, that's it for this episode of Stunt Stories. I hope you enjoyed it.